All right, so don't forget you have an exam tomorrow. We're trying to get all these papers handed back to you so you have all the tools that you need to be successful tomorrow. We have some students making up some time that from being gone over in the lab as we speak. So we're winding down very quickly. So with that, see, now I can see why that door is closed. Shoot, I had this on pause. I only had about 30 seconds up to this point in time. So we didn't have any of that content recorded because I had some students that returned from their field trip. Okay, so what type of muscle tissues are there? What do you have conscious control over and what do you not have conscious control? There's a difference. There's voluntary and there's involuntary.
Do you have muscle tissue?
Okay.
I know the one that's skeletal tissue.
Muscle, skeletal,
What is it?
epithelial, and nervous tissue. Those are your four. Okay, so what is it that makes up nervous tissue? Neurons do that. That's right. Okay, then, for instance, when we look at hold that thought. So then, like we had mentioned earlier, myosin and actin make up this basic structure of muscles. It's the one where you said, I forgot.
The two proteins.
No, those are the two proteins. Yeah.
Myo something.
Myofibrous.
Yep, that
That's right. Okay. So then, when you look at that, which are the thick filaments, which are the thin ones?
Myofibers.
No.
Myosin?
Is that thick or thin?
Thick.
Myosin is the thick one.
Myosin is the thick one.
Yes.
Actin is the thin one.
Actin is the thin one. I got it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Then, if you hear the term epithelial, what does that mean to you?
Means
It's a type of tissue.
skin.
Yeah, it's a type of skin tissue. Okay. What about bone marrow? Is that something significant?
Inside of the bone.
It's inside the bone.
Red blood cells.
Yeah,
It
and
contains
and that's what it
nervous
does.
blood.
What about red blood
It
cells?
produces them.
Okay. Produces red and white blood cells. That's correct.
You know what I'm talking about, buddy?
Okay. Then let's see here. And we talked about eccrine sweat glands. Where do you find them?
Pepperine? On your everywhere other than your
Armpits.
That's apocrine sweat
Oh,
glands.
yeah.
everywhere but your armpits and your private parts.
On your
But that's
nose.
true, okay? Because even though both of them secrete a watery substance, it's the eccrine glands that help cool the body. Okay? So then,
Armpits cool the body when they're really warm all the time. They're letting out a lot of heat from your body.
so then, what is it that would make up skeletal tissue? What type of cell would do that? So you have to, okay, what does it mean to be a bone cell? Any bone cell.
You're alive.
That's an osteocyte. So then a collection of osteocytes would make up what type of tissue then? Skeletal tissue. That's right. Okay. When cartilage turns to bone, what is that called? Yeah, it's ossification. Okay. Then so then in your knee, as far as connective tissue, what is that? That's a ligament. Okay. Then above your heel bone. And one of the things that we like to talk about is if you're suspending a deer, for instance, when it's in the fall, okay, you've done your field dressing, at least, or gutting, or whatever that is, and maybe you've done your skinning of the animal. When you need to hang that up to let the blood drain out of there, how do you hang them? It's by their feet. Right, and there's a really tough connective tissue that you can use to suspend them. And humans have the same type, same one actually. What is it that's on the back of your leg that hooks to your heel bone or calcaneus?
Achilles.
Yeah, your Achilles tendon. And that's how you would hang different types of carcasses. You're probably hanging them by their Achilles tendon. Because then you can elaborate by saying that tendons don't connect bone to bone, they connect muscle to bone. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Then could be such an aspect talking about joints, like this type of a joint, that type of a joint. Your knee was this type of a joint. Not voluntary.
Extend.
Say that again. I thought you no. That's a type of tooth. It's what a door swings on. Yeah, it's a hinge joint. Okay? Like maybe up in your cranium. Does this joint move?
Yes.
No.
Oh, no.
It's an immovable joint. Okay? And then, does anyone know what type of joint this is? It's your, yeah. Say that again. Ball and socket joint. That's right. So those are some vocabulary terms you might want to be familiar with. That's why we went over them. And then also in the drop folder for, I don't know how many days that has been in there, the questions over athletic body limits and the history of surgery or kill or cure. That's what the video was entitled. Those questions were written up on the board, have the answers on them, and it's at your disposal. Anything else?
How much of the muscles and blood vessels do we need to know? All of them?
Okay, that's two totally different concepts. We're just talking about tomorrow. You're talking about next week.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Can we close the door on tomorrow? Then we'll elaborate on your question.
Is there what things are what things are gonna be on the
Okay. Besides vocabulary, what other information can you use to help yourself? And where can you find that content? For the last week it's been in this location. It's been in the drop folder for about a week now. Okay? That's where you can find content besides those vocabulary terms we just went over. That's not computing? Okay, hold that thought. Okay, so to answer a question that was asked, besides those vocabulary terms that we just went over, that again, you could also find on the evaluations that you have been taking these last few days. Now, I understand if you had just taken it today, we may not get that back to you. We try to get them back to you in a timely manner. But besides those vocabulary terms, this is what you find in the drop folder. Okay? Does this look familiar? Yeah. Okay. Then, besides those questions, you can say, oh boy, I did not write those down. Is that a problem? Well, no, for one, here it is. And just go to the next file, and then it has the answers in here for you. Then the history of surgery, okay? There was these types of questions that were also, we'd gone over in class. Oh no, I didn't write the answers. Well, there they are. Okay? Make sense?
Yes, sir.
For the most part, all of these are probably on there on your exam. These on this one. Okay? Then maybe not necessarily all of these, but probably a fair majority of them. Okay, then can we close the door on what was expected of you for tomorrow?
Yes, we can close.
Because it's a very specific question. If you have more about tomorrow, you've got to tell me. Anything else for tomorrow? Okay. I didn't know if anybody would remember that, but we did. So we'll come back to that. Now, when it comes to your final, which remember everyone takes, but not everyone has that graded. Okay? Because there's different parameters that allow you to not have that count. That changes, however, next year. Okay? If you take a science class next year as an elective, you do take the final, and it is graded, fall and spring. Okay? Because you're choosing to be in here. Okay. So, information for your final. Do you suppose there's a location where you can find that information?
Probably in the drop folder.
Okay.
Listed all the-
So here also in the drop folder, we probably still have them up here. Okay. Oh, that was a while ago. Okay. So we have these muscle additions, okay? Because these were some file names that we asked you to write down. Did anyone write them down, or do we need to write these file names down again?
I didn't write them down.
Okay. And then, of course, it's not all of this. It just says AP and biology. These, all of the skeletal identification on page 941. Okay. And then also these muscles. Okay. Again, this is in the drop folder. Then you may ask, well, how do we know where to find these muscles? How do we know where to find these bones? Well, good question. And what you can do is, this is also in the drop folder when it comes to these vessels. Okay? You have access to this. Okay? I don't know what that means. And then you also have this as well for locating muscles. I think it's probably because this has been open for so long. But this is next week. Okay? So you have access to this content as well. Questions on that? Okay. So, barring no further questions, we can shut this off now. And go back to what you had asked earlier, which was what? Do we really need them? Okay.
I'm gonna see.
Okay.
I want to pass this.
Okay, so at first glance, this probably does not make much sense, but
I'm sure Google will tell me.
what does it mean by a founding? Okay, like when we talk about founding fathers here in this country, what does that mean?
Like the United, like the George Washington.
Yeah, it's when America probably became the idea of we can form our own separate country, the founding of America. But in this case, the founding of our public universities predate. What does it mean to predate something? It came before. So, like SDSU, I think is somewhere in the 1880s. USD might be in the 1860s. I believe. I'm not totally sure on those dates, but they certainly come before South Dakota's statehood. In other words, of course, Congress had to ratify South Dakota becoming a state and entering the Union. That's what we mean by statehood. So then, these universities predate South Dakota's statehood, which was blank. What year was that? Then, bonus 2, Walt Disney first made many cartoon shorts. These short cartoons is something that came before the main attraction or main movie, main show. Since some of you were discussing that earlier, I thought, well, let's throw this up here. But for a full-length cartoon, and I don't even know what the length of this movie is, but it's certainly more than 15 minutes. So the first full-length movie that was a cartoon made by Walt Disney is called what?
Can you like restate the first one? I don't really understand it. Like, is it like the first college in South Dakota?
No.
When did South Dakota become a state?
Okay. Is there anything that is not clear? And I probably did not. What was that?
Oh, he has Tourette's syndrome.
I do not have Tourette's. That's fine.
Okay. Is there anything about those questions that is unclear? Because I maybe don't word them the best, but sometimes trying to think of these right off the top of your head, it's difficult to do.
Still look at the first one.
It's just asking when South
So,
statehood was.
yeah, when did South Dakota become a state? What year did South Dakota become a state? That's what it's asking. Okay,
You little.
Can I go to softball or get ready for softball?
That's the year.
in just a moment. Okay, that's all I have. We'll catch up to you next time.
See Jed sit